Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life YouTube channel, and welcome to this Critters franchise review video as part of my February series here. So, in this video, we're going to take a look at the sequel to the original Critters from my Scream Factory box set, and that, of course, is Critters 2, the main course from 1988. And again, just like the first movie, it has a lot of special features, none of which I've watched or checked out yet, but and it's PG-13 like the first movie. So let's talk about Critters 2, the main course. So Critters 2, the main course, also known just as Critters 2, is a 1988 American science fiction comedy horror film directed by Mick Garris in his directorial debut, and the second installment in the Critters franchise. A direct sequel to Critters, the film was written by David Twohy and Garris, and stars Scott Grimes, Don Keith Opper, and Terrence Mann reprising their roles. The plot takes place 2 years after the first film, as a batch of planted critter eggs begin to hatch and resume their carnivorous appetite upon the town once again. Out in space on a desolate planet, the shape-shifting bounty hunters Oog and Lee and their human companion Charlie McFadden search for a vicious worm-like creature. After killing the beast, they depart the planet. Soon afterwards, they receive a new assignment by Xanti, head of the High Council. He tells them that Krites have been detected on Earth and must be destroyed at once. With that, they set a course for Earth, but Oog notices Charlie is brooding, and he inquires about what is wrong. Charlie states his reluctance going back to Earth after 2 years and asks whether they will be leaving him there. Ugg assures him that they have no such intentions. Back on Earth, Brad Brown, now 15, is visiting his grandmother in Grover's Bend, Kansas. Word gets around the town fast, implying he became well known after the events of the first film. Meanwhile, a man named Mr. Quigley sells strange eggs to Brad's grandmother for Easter celebration. However, unbeknownst to them, the eggs are actually Krite eggs. Shortly after selling the eggs, Mr. Quigley leaves the rest of the Krite eggs next to the furnace, which causes them to start to hatch. The next day, when Mr. Quigley comes back to his shed, he finds the eggs in pieces and his dog dead. The newly hatched baby critters then appear to attack Quigley and kill him. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, the beginning of Critters 2, the main course. As far as the cast goes, we have Terrence Mann as Ugg, Scott Grimes as Brad Brown, Terrence Mann as Ugg, Leanne Alexandra Curtis as Megan Morgan, Don Keith Opper as Charlie McFadden, Barry Corbin as Sheriff Harvey Harv, Tom Hodges as Wesley, Sam Anderson as Mr. Morgan, Lindsay Parker as Cindy, Herta Ware as Nana, and Lynn Shay as Sal. So Lynn Shay also returns from the first movie, although it's more like a cameo in this movie. A little bit like the first movie, but I feel like she was in the first movie a little bit more to do. But anyway, that's to set up the premise and the cast for the 1988 sequel, Critters 2, the main course. I enjoyed this movie once again, much like the first movie. It's dumb fun. It's dumb fun. It's a B creature movie, a B horror movie creature feature. It has a lot of the same things the first movie does going for it. I don't like it quite as much as the first movie, and I'll get into why when I get to my cons. But first, let's talk about the things that I do like about Critters 2, the main course. I have to take a sip. Okay. So, I like the characters / actors that are returning to this movie from the first movie for continuity's sake. You get Terrence Mann, Scott Grimes, Don Keith Opper, Lynn Shay, like I said, to a certain extent, all returning from the first movie, those actors. And then there's another character that returns from the first movie, Sheriff Harv, but this time he's played by Barry Corbin instead of... Oh, I forget. Now the name escapes me. Oh, I can get it here. Just a second. Emmett Walsh played him in the first movie, and it's Barry Corbin in this movie. So I'm guessing Emmett Walsh didn't want to come back and do the sequel to Critters, but I like Barry Corbin. I think he does a good job. Definitely a different portrayal of this character, but yeah, that didn't bother me so much. But it is good to have returning actors, returning characters. Just kind of gives you a little bit more to go on from the first movie, a little bit more connection, I guess. It helps the transition from the first movie and sort of continue our story with having some previous character background on these returning characters. So that was the first thing that I really liked. I really liked the Easter setting here and how they utilized it with these Krite eggs being found and distributed as Easter eggs. And how that contributes to the critters coming out and attacking the townspeople. And just for the overall narrative for this movie about why we have another Critters movie. What's the reason or the point for it? I feel like the whole Easter egg aspect really plays into that well, so we don't have to ask why the critters are back, how they're back, how they get distributed throughout the town. And then on top of that, so we just don't get a lot of Easter horror movies. There's not a lot that are set on Easter, so I really that's going to make this movie stand out a bit for me because I don't think I've ever seen any other Easter related horror movies. So that's something that I really like, but more so as it relates to the story. How they intertwine those Krite eggs to be like Easter eggs, where kids in town are painting them and stuff, and then of course eventually they hatch and wreak havoc. I just thought that was a nice way to sort of have a reason for the season, no pun intended, but also pun intended. So yeah, that was one thing I really liked here. I liked that the bounty hunters were more involved with the actual killing of the critters in this movie. In the first movie they just kind of show up to kill the critters. But instead, they just kind of wreak havoc on the town and are trying to find the critters. Where in this movie, they kind of find them right away. And there's one scene in a restaurant, like a burger joint, where the two bounty hunters, Ugg, and then the other one who's, I think is it Lee? Well, it was in the first movie. In this movie, it ends up taking the shape of a female Playboy Playmate character, as it were. But I don't know if I don't think I put the character's name down, or the actress's name. Hold on one second. Let me look this up. There were so many characters in the cast here that I couldn't get everybody down on my notes, but I want to find the one for Roxanne Kernahan, who she played Lee, who's the second bounty hunter. Obviously, she wasn't in the first movie. Lee took on different characters, but Roxanne Kernahan, rest in peace, by the way. She tragically died at 32 in the early 90s in a car accident, but she plays Lee in this movie, basically. But I think I actually liked the bounty hunters more in this movie, even though I really liked them in the first movie as far as their presence and everything. In this movie, there's, like I said, that scene in this burger joint restaurant where they just wreak havoc on these critters and they blow a lot of them away, and it's just a really fun, good scene in this movie. I also, Charlie McFadden, of course, who's kind of working now with the bounty hunters from the end of the first movie. If you know, you know. I really like his arc from the first movie to the end of this movie. He kind of goes from being a drunk, nobody believes, and he's kind of a crackpot, to joining the bounty hunters, to then coming back and really playing a hero and ultimately becoming the sheriff of this town. He's got a really nice character arc from the first two movies here, the first movie and the second movie, and I really liked that as well. I thought that was definitely one of the highlights in this movie, as well as the first movie, just the whole arc that he has. This movie also has nudity, which for a PG-13 movie is kind of surprising. It's full topless nudity of that actress that I just mentioned, Roxanne Kernahan, who plays Lee. And it isn't just a glance at her breasts. I mean, it actually focuses on them for at least 30 seconds to a minute. So I'm not sure how they got away with that in a PG-13 movie. But there is nudity in this movie. I would say there's about the same amount of blood and gore. Some people say this is a gorier movie. I would say in certain aspects it might be, but I also don't think it's quite as visceral as far as gore goes. Especially the transformation of Ugg when he becomes the rock star that he portrays in the first movie and in this movie. It's much more visceral and kind of gross in the first movie. Here it's just more of zapping into that character and yeah, so I don't know that I would say it's much more gory. Again, it does have blood and gore, which you don't always expect from a PG-13 movie. And then the effects as well are pretty well done here. Obviously, like a lot of horror sequels, they try to go bigger, they try to go badder. To varying degrees does that work as it relates to sequels, but I really do like the Critters ball that we get in the third act of this movie, as a lot of other people have mentioned, where the critters all... First of all, you have a lot more critters. In the first movie, I think you only had 4 or 5 that you saw. In this movie, you got enough of them to form this gigantic ball that ends up rolling through the town. And clearly the best kill of the movie is when this ball rolls over this poor townsperson, this guy... And you end up seeing just like his they eat all the flesh off his body. You just end up seeing like his skeleton sort of jittering there. It's just a really great scene. It's hard to describe, but you just got to see it. That's definitely the best kill in the movie. That was part of the great gore effects that I was talking about as well. But yeah, I really like the Critters ball that we get in the third act here, and that probably is an addition to... We didn't get that in the first movie, obviously, but I really like that in this movie. So yeah, there's a lot to like in Critters 2, the main course. Those are my pros for it. I could probably find other ones, but those are the ones that stand out. As far as cons go, I really wasn't buying, and I'm not really sure why they needed to have the romantic vibes or the connection between Brad and Megan. First of all, the actress Megan is about 22 in this movie, and Scott Grimes, who plays Brad, is about 15 or 16 in this movie. So normally a 6-year age gap isn't that big of a deal, but when one of them is like a mid-teenager, 15 or 16, and the other one can drink legally, it's a little bit awkward just on the surface. But then I just didn't think the chemistry between these two actors was all that good either. So I totally wasn't buying the vibes here. It felt awkward and unnecessary. And yeah, the age gap has a lot to do with that, but I also just don't think these two actors had the chemistry they needed to really pull it off. Overall, I wasn't as connected to the townspeople that were introduced to in this movie, as well as some of the returning characters, as I was with the family in the first movie. That's probably the thing that kind of takes it down from the first movie a little bit, to where I like the first movie just a tad more than this one, because of that connection that I had to the family, of course, being led by Dee Wallace. None of them are back in this movie. And I just kind of felt like you just had a bunch of random townspeople thrown in here that were hard to connect with. They were characters that really didn't have any sort of... It was hard for the viewer to connect with any of them. And then this movie has a lot of plot conveniences and a lot less that's explained. Like the sheriff we know he's gotten fired or voted out by the townspeople, and then he basically has a scene where he says, the hell with them, and leaves. And then of course he comes back predictably to save the day. None of that's really explained. Brad coming back to visit his grandmother, that didn't always work for me. Like, where's the rest of his family? Why did they move away at the end of the first movie when their house was... Again, this is going to have some... I don't mean to have spoilers to the first movie, but you really don't understand what I'm saying here if you don't know the first movie with the second movie. But their house is basically restored at the end of the first movie. I'll just say that. But they still choose to move to Kansas City away from this town. Now, that's really a case where Dee Wallace and them just didn't want to come back and do this movie, as is the case in a lot of horror sequels or sequels in general. But I don't know, there's just a lot of stuff they throw at this movie and they expect you to just go with. That's not really explained. And I really didn't like that. I didn't think the first movie was like that. I think the first movie was a little tighter made, a little better directed. As you know, if you follow my channel, I'm not the biggest fan of Mick Garris as a director. I didn't like his directing of Psycho 4. I didn't like his directing of what's the show in the 2000s that he did? Masters of Horror. He directed one. I'm just not a big fan of Mick Garris. I don't think the guy has any balls when it comes to being a horror director. I didn't hate his directing in this movie, but it does. I don't think it's as strong as the director we got in the first movie. And that, of course, would be. Sorry, let me look this up quick, otherwise it's going to bug me. Stephen Herrick. I thought Stephen Herrick did a better job directing a Critters movie than Mick Garris did. Although, again, I don't hate Mick Garris's directing in this movie. I just don't feel like the movie overall, it's not as strongly written. It's not as strongly executed. So yeah, I mean, that's really all I can say at the end of the day. Again, they just throw a lot more at the screen and expect you to go with it without any explanation. But with all that being said, I still really like Critters 2, the main course here from 1988. It's a solid sequel to the original Critters movie, but not as good in my opinion. I know some people like this one more than the first movie, and that's totally understandable. But I also think it's a movie that they tried to go more for the comedy, which does work again. The first movie had comedic elements as well, but I also think it had a little bit of creepiness. Now, some of that's the fact you only had so many critters, and it all took place on this farm. They really opened up the world, so to speak. We're showing this entire town and having a bigger budget, but it's a little bit more gimmicky as well. So yeah, overall, guys, I had a lot of fun with Critters 2, the main course, and I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. I think it's solid. So 7 out of 10 for Critters 2 from 1988. Go ahead and comment down below your guys' thoughts. Do you like this one more than the first Critters movie? Or are you like me, where you like it but a little bit less? Why or why not? Comment down below. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would really help me out for the future content on my channel going forward. But with all that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying this Critters franchise review series. And as always, stay scared. Bye.